Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to begin first with a couple of important updates from NOAA. Yesterday, they released their newest updates for June, July, and August temperature and precipitation outlooks. The temperatures on the left and the precipitations on the right. They've been quite consistent with this picture overall, citing a lot of the similar features that we've been talking about. So the behavior between the North Pacific and the warmth there and the Central Pacific, and the possible development of La Nina conditions as we progress through summer into late summer. So they are certainly keeping parts of the south and southeast quite wet, and more than likely going to be seeing a warmer than average summer across much of the United States here. The other important release that they gave out was this one. This is their 2020 Atlantic Hurricane Season Outlook, and for the first time in a while, I've now seen their seasonal probability plot. That's the one that's over here on the left-hand side, not look like 30-30-30. They've given a high probability, just like we've been discussing, of above normal activity. Now, just remember, whenever we talk about this, while the numbers may seem high, we've had very active hurricane seasons in the past where the hurricanes do miss the East Coast, they miss the South, they miss the Gulf Coast, and so therefore we always have that bit of variability in the longer term outlook, and we cannot predict the eventual formation and track of these things more than about 7 days in advance. So we'll just keep all that in mind. This is really just reminding us that conditions are ripe. Now, looking back over the last 3 days, our upper level low that has been sitting and spinning over parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. On the southern side of it, we've actually seen quite a bit of heavy rainfall in some local locations here. Also, some severe weather that came out of this yesterday. There was reports of tornadoes in parts of South Carolina. You can see how heavy the rainfall has been just in the last 3 days. Outside of that, we've had quite a show here in the southern plains in terms of severe weather and some of the storms that were blowing up there. I'll just show you a quick animation of this so you can see it. You can see that stretching from south central Texas all the way up into, back into parts of Kansas, we saw some powerful thunderstorms. If I just pause this, you can get a better look at it here. First of all, take a look at the swirl in the cloud mass over there over Tennessee, Kentucky, where that upper level low has really plagued us with colder temperatures. And as these storms went shooting up into the afternoon sky, I think it's important to see that as the sun set, you can see the height of what we call the overshooting tops of each of these storms. So that tells us that they had vigorous updrafts, strong, powerful updrafts, and the bigger the updrafts, the bigger the hail. And so we certainly saw in the south central part of the United States quite a few reports of hail from these thunderstorms. In total, 14 separate reports of tornadoes, about 131 added reports when you put all together, the biggest which coming from hail, and some of that hail was getting up to be softball size. So this was yet another case where the southern plains getting hammered with severe weather. Now what I want to do is I just want you to watch this animation with me. Again, we're looking at troughs and ridges. We can see here as we work our way through the weekend and early next week, the south central plains deals with quite a bit of troughing before a broader ridge right here as we finish the month starts to build into that area. But as we finish the end of this animation and get out here into the first full week of June, we do notice that the jet stream pattern is favoring a broader trough over the west and a ridge that sits right into here. So we need to see what this means in terms of both our near-term and our longer-term chances at precipitation. So just remember that as we get into the first week of June, there is a ridge sitting somewhere right in through here. And what that may mean for precipitation here versus here and there could be two entirely different scenarios. So we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. Okay, first things first, the week 1 precipitation outlook from the WPC is painting central Texas through Oklahoma, Arkansas very wet. While things do appear to be drier in this side of our southern region, we are anticipating quite a bit of just convection, afternoon thunderstorm activity. But the flood threat will be very high in through this area as we progress through our next week. This is also reflected in the European model. You can see once again we're opening up a pretty broad corridor here of wetter conditions. One of the key differences between what you just saw in this model is how much precipitation we are seeing from the European coming off of this kind of pulse of tropical moisture in this area that's going to be hitting parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, so it's a little bit wetter there, while the model is certainly drier over here in the southeast. So to just show you the differences here when looking at the week 1 WPC precipitation anomalies, that's on the left, and the European models precipitation anomalies on the right, we can start to see some discrepancies in our southern region, just particularly with that pulse of tropical moisture in through here. So we're going to watch that over the weekend and throughout early next week to see if this does eventually increase our rainfall threats in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Alabama. That's going to be the critical piece here. Also, if you're just watching this outside of the southern region, you can see differences as you get up here into the central and eastern Corn Belt as well with precipitation totals. So we have a lot to be keeping our eye on here in terms of flooding threat moving forward. Finally, I just want to let you know the GFS is by far seems to be the wettest of the models. You can really see it's carving out a broad corridor here of much above average precipitation. And of course that extends into the southeast as well. So we've got a lot of different models to be watching here over the weekend to see how this all teases out next week. Now, just to play for you an animation of what we saw in the overnight hours through early this morning, you can see this powerful squall line that was moving through parts of Oklahoma. This is actually what was left over of the huge supercell that was here in Kansas last night, which again was just impressive. Meanwhile, across parts of the southeast, getting over toward the Carolinas, we are finally getting the last of those rain bands out of the way here today as that upper level low finally kicks on out. But it's going to be these storms right in through here we're going to watch very carefully, because they are building into an environment later on today that will have be extremely destabilized. So you can see here we're looking at a map of Cape midday today. So Cape is convective available potential energy, and you can see that certainly in this corridor we're getting some extremely high values. So once again today our threat is going to possibly be for some big hail. So watch this. This is the forecast. You can see the outflow of those thunderstorms here at 2 a.m. Running to the east. And let me show you that again and pause it this time. And so what you notice is that the storms go racing across Oklahoma. They'll kind of lose some of their energy through midday today. And then you're going to see them building on down the line here into that high Cape environment. See it there by this afternoon and this evening. Now, if we let the model continue to play, it could be a large squall line feature that moves through parts of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana late this afternoon, this evening, and then tonight. And then the models want to continue just to let that push into that high instability air in the overnight hours. But then in the day tomorrow on Saturday, this is now getting you through middle of the day on Saturday, we're going to watch again Saturday evening for the potential for more storms to erupt here. This again would be our day 2 forecast from SPC. So let's go ahead and take a look at those maps. Today, day 1, we certainly have an enhanced risk of severe weather, as we just saw building down that line later on today, and also still the risk of thunderstorms here as the upper level low is still kicking its way out with its main rain band already offshore, but behind it we're going to watch for some thunderstorm activity. Then you can see day 2 here from the Storm Prediction Center. I think we might see them increase the probabilities here tomorrow on Saturday as well. And this gets us out to our Sunday outlook. And this is about the time we just open this up and really start to bring in a broad sector with a lot of precipitation. Now I can just play this for you. This is just the European model. And if you just notice, we see across much of our southern region through the next 10 days just a lot of daily convective activity, thunderstorms. And so what we're going to see here, this is now working our way through Saturday. Getting into Sunday and Monday, just notice the flow. Remember we talked about this week, the isobars really pulling the moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico, and what it does here is it's just meeting a boundary, and the boundary sits right here, and on it thunderstorms are just going to continue to erupt. This is very typical late May, early June type of convective activity when there's nothing blocking up the flow. So I just took you all the way through a week in the forecast, and it's just general thunderstorm activity across this whole sector during that time period, with less over here in the southeast, but it's not as though there's none. When we look out beyond that, this is how things start off day 10, and this will be where the change begins to happen. You see the broader trough by day 10 forecast by all of our models is now currently sitting here off the west coast, and then there's another one that's stretching from basically the Greenland all the way through the northeast. But with this ridge in place right in through here, we could get some drier weather, but generally when ridges form like this at this time of year, we tend to get moisture advecting or moving underneath it, erupting thunderstorms, possibly monsoonal-like in this area. So we'll see drier conditions to the north, but unsettled weather to the south under the heat and humidity that gets pulled in under these ridges. This is not the kind of ridge that sends us into drought. Okay, that would be a much more northerly ridge, and it would be centered a little bit farther to the east. So what do we see into the week 2? You can see the moisture being pulled in this direction, so this could increase monsoonal-like precipitation over the Four Corners states. But north of it, you can see how much drier things are in through this area. And again, the models over the southeast for week 2 looking at much closer to normal precipitation. If we go from there over to temperatures, we know that because of the way that the end of April and beginning of May, well, the first 3 weeks of May has shaped up, we've actually gone ourselves over into a deficit in GDUs, been showing this quite a bit. So any heat into this area could help recover some of this, but due to a lot of cloud cover on cooler weather, we've built ourselves up a deficit compared to what's normal this time of year. So we see that in the day today on Friday, our southern region is experiencing near average to a slight warm bias, and temperatures a lot of mid to upper 80s with some lower 90s there. And as we play forward again, here's our biggest trough feature coming through the northwest. You'll see that in the day on Saturday, this is your Memorial Day weekend, we have quite a bit of warm weather across the south. A little bit cooler than average in Texas, where we are anticipating thunderstorm activity, cloudy skies, so that's why we see the numbers down here compared to normal, but still quite warm. And as we press from Sunday now into Monday and Tuesday, this is where we really start to see the thunderstorm activity, the convective pull here out of the, or the moisture push out of the Gulf, really increasing thunderstorm activity. So that's why we just don't see this extreme heat. And remember too, we have this broader trough that's sweeping through the area. So as we play this out just through 1 week and then switch over to see where our models are taking things from there, once again, where the cloud cover and storms are going to be sitting, we see cooler than average weather. And with that broader trough by day 10 setting up here, we still don't see much above average temperatures during that time period. So going from there, I want to talk with you about two other things real quick to finish this video. One is the MJO. As I mentioned over the last couple of days, the MJO is finally forecast to break out of where it's been stuck and get finally over into the Western Hemisphere. So when you look at this, do you see the numbers 1 through 8 here? That is representing the different locations, and the graph that's on the top here shows us where there is suppressing motion in the atmosphere and where there is upper level divergence, where we're letting air rise. And so what we do notice is that by the time we work our way into June, the best rising motion is setting up over where we typically see tropical development. So it's just something I want to keep an eye on. We don't have anything on the forecast right now about tropical development, but it's just going to be more conducive to that as the MJO sweeps out into phases 8 and 1. So keep a close eye on this as well. Last thing I want to show you, just the latest update from the European model on June. So overall, when you look at this, to be honest, the models are kind of got a bit of a mess. If they've been consistent about one thing, it's the southern delta area, they're not picking up on much above average precipitation. You can see how wet they're keeping the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Western Atlantic here, which would indicate quite a bit of tropical activity. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that for the month of June on precipitation, there's still a pretty sizable unknown. We do see, though, that the return has been quite consistent toward warmer conditions with much warmer out west. So we'll keep an eye on it and keep you updated. I hope you all have a great Memorial Day weekend. I'll talk to you again on Monday, okay? Thank you.